Hello, and thank you. Yes, I haven't worn this in a while. It's one of my back catalog. It's been a while since I put this on. Just getting the OBS thing all set up. Wish I could figure out a way to get the crop so that the chat would fit a little bit better. Is that... I wonder if that... okay, that seems to make a difference. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Yeah, you learn a new thing about OBS every day, really. Ausgabe, turn down a bit. Still learning things about how this software works. Really would be nice to have a faster computer to work with it. It takes forever whenever I do any kind of video renders. Get a little bit of rapid going to start out. And how are you doing today? I had the hardest time once trying to get it to... I was trying to do a video that was going to involve a whole bunch of analysis of statistics of this really dodgy report. And so I wanted to be able to show my Excel table on screen as I was doing it. And no matter what I did, the crop came out wrong. It was the biggest pain in the ass. Sorry to hear that. How's my audio, by the way? Hearing me okay? Okay. Excellent. Glad to hear that. Always try to make sure of that, because occasionally I've talked for like 15 minutes and only then worked out that nothing I was saying was actually getting picked up. Okay, this is a really weird approach that I'm taking. See what happens with it, I suppose. Actually learning to play this piece on piano. Or started to. Will be doing more of it once I manage to actually find the proper piano sheet music for it. Which right now I have... There's some people in Japan, some very helpful people, who are going through their sheet music collections to try to find it for me. randomly emailed them, and they're like, "Yeah, okay, we'll check out our catalog." Not, I mean, despite not actually being a bookshop or really anything like that. And what have we got now? Okay, let's castle before this gets too dodgy. This is not a threat because I end up taking a queen and a knight for a rook. I believe I'm winning a piece if I take there, because then I remove the defender on the bishop, and at that point the rook will be hanging. Okay, take that with check. And GG. Always nice when one of these things actually comes off the way you were planning it. 신비로운 속도로 우린 나르네. Play one more. That was a really quick one after all. And I think we will be paying another visit to Xanderhole. Can't believe it's taken me so long to work out that I could be calling him that. Interesting name. Okay. Okay, that doesn't seem to have been... Oh, let me see. No, that doesn't... That pawn's in the way. I was hoping I'd just pin the queen to the king. 앞길 막을 차 어디 있으랴. Maybe I can manage to trap this queen and then castle queenside. And the king is actually fairly exposed. Is that a good move? No, I don't think so. Okay. What are you having? Okay, now this king is exposing itself further, although I think we're going to see a queenside castle coming up there, which actually I think I'm fine with. I don't think that's actually going to be causing me any problems at all. No, that's no good. My bishop gets trapped. Oh shit. Okay, I just hung my knight. Okay, make sure it's worth it. Oh, hello there. Good timing. Andromeda Echo just went off to make dinner for a bit. This ensures round-the-clock chat coverage. Yes, she will. And how are you today? Any plans? Oh, fine with that, actually. Okay, I can take away castling privileges and win a pawn. That'll work. Do have to worry a bit about back rank, but right now... Okay, threatening that b2 pawn. Take that with check. I think I can also get the knight. Back rank is no longer strictly a problem. Good game. Oh, that's. Okay. What? For what? Yeah, well played to you too. Was that in reference to my asking if you had plans? I just meant because you weren't going to be here long. Plans for sleep are wonderful plans. Oh no, I just meant you. No, I just meant since you were not going to be here long and it's a Saturday night, I figured maybe you had something you were doing. But tired and sleeping is a totally it's a brilliant fucking plan actually. That life needs to catch up to bed because bed is actually a wonderful place. Well, in that case, it's definitely good if you're managing to make up for that a bit. And I think we're going to pay Xanderhole a visit. Oh, hold on. Remove. So, I mean, so far in this series... Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So far in this series, Xanderhole has informed us that he doesn't know the meaning of such terms as, well, X, moral luck, and, amazingly enough, boomer. Welcome back. The frustrating, stubborn boomer that is actually from the tail end of Generation X. And apparently, anyone who remembers cassette tapes is a boomer to some people. Okay, what his optics? I mean, his optics are he keeps on like towards whom exactly? First of all, because I would have thought that the whole being against decolonization and using white nationalist talking points and trying to come up with his own fucking special sauce definition of woke scold in order to insulate himself from accusations of racism, I would have thought those weren't the best optics to have. But I guess it depends on your target audience. Oh, yes, it is, isn't it? Yeah, I turn it down when it's the music. Gotta turn it back up now that it's Xanderhole. Take it back a little.
I mean, I promise you, my optics are a lot better than the optics
that better?
like you and those that I assume agree with you on this issue are presenting. Because like anybody who's thinking about getting into the left and joining these social spaces and learning more about these things, which by the way, I haven't even gotten into this in my video or in this debate, but a significant amount of adopting new political opinions and moving to the left and to the right, this happens in any political space, happens when you have in-depth personal discussions and friendships with people that can move you in that direction.
Except that he shuts down any kind of in-depth personal discussions because he's decided that he should be lecturing people when what he really needs to be doing is shutting the fuck up and listening. Because... how is the audio okay now, or should I bump it up a little bit more? I mean, he just is in total denial. That's like the most charitable reading I can come up with. about the reactionary tendencies he's still got, because he has to, in order to justify his presence as a fucking YouTube celebrity, has to pretend that he actually has overcome all that stuff, even though he very patently has not.
People that you trust and people that you have camaraderie with. It's not just watching YouTube videos on the internet. It's
Your
personal
real core.
relationships.
That's just your
Yeah, and trust is earned.
real core audience, man. I mean, you have like you said, you have way more that dip in and out, you know, and don't really like.
That's
maybe
every
probably don't watch
streamer.
your
That is
whole-
every content creator ever.
Well, okay, yeah, right. I'm just saying that you're acting like you're just like everybody's so just hyper focused on your shit and analyzing exactly what you're saying and trying to understanding everything what you say. People
I'd
don't.
say those that are hyper focusing on all of my
Older leftist over here, nearly 35, and Xander Hole is great. Okay, first of all, fuck you. 35 is not an older leftist. Second of all, Xander Hole is not great.
shit are probably those that like really don't like me and just want to find any reason not to like me.
Oh, somebody's taking the piss in the comments. Prince Philip must be a secret leftist. He's bringing the average way up. Yeah, I mean, by Xander Hole's definition, who's to say?
Well, you're saying you're expecting people to be hyper focused on it because they have to know everything that you're saying, or they're.
What do you mean hyper focused?
If
I
well,
what do you mean hyper
that they need to be, they need to know that. Well,
most
that they
people
need to
listen
know
to my
exactly
streams
what
while they're
you mean
doing
by
chores. Most people listen to my streams while they're studying or doing chores or homework or playing video games in the background.
Right. That's when I listen to it when I work.
Yeah, that's what the
I
vast
watch basically
majority of
all your
people
shit,
do.
man.
Then it's
I watch
astonishing
all
to
your
me
shit.
that you're saying the things that you're saying to me right
No, it's astonishing. You see, the thing that he's astonished by, we heard this last night, was another caller saying that Xander Hole has some reactionary tendencies, to which he responded by demonstrating that this is entirely an accurate statement. But he's astonished.
now.
I'm not, because you're going the wrong way. You're like, or not. You're going about this the wrong way. Not going the wrong way. I don't think people should be attacking people that have said that they're ex-Nazis. I think that people should be a lot more wary and a lot more needing of maybe a little bit more evidence that they're not Nazis.
Damn right. Anyone can say it. I mean, and anyone who lived through Occupy, just to name one example, knows how many fash are happy to slide their way in with third positionist talking points where they sort of pretty up some of their usual propaganda to make it sound like, oh, look, so that it sounds like sort of the lowest common denominator with the left, and then say, oh, the left-right paradigm is obsolete, and by the way, I have a link to the Protocols of the Elders of Zion on my blog, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, this is an actual thing. Fascists trying to infiltrate our circles and feed off of the legitimacy that being connected with us actually potentially gives them is a long-standing thing. That goes back, actually, to the dawn of fascism, really. So, wariness is totally warranted.
Be more accepting into these spaces.
You
and
can't prove
you
a
shouldn't
negative.
Be shoving out.
You can't have evidence someone's not a Nazi.
Yeah, you fucking can. Like, I mean, you ask them about decolonization, and they say, oh yeah, that actually makes sense because colonization was fucked up and genocidal, and obviously the people who have survived this long, having been subjected to it, deserve to have some kind of self-determination, deserve to get their ancestral lands back, deserve to be made whole to the extent that that's possible, and based on whatever it is that they decide makes the most sense for them in their situation. See, somebody says that, I'm going to say they're probably not a Nazi. Somebody says, what, decolonization? But but what about the 6 million white South Africans? It's gonna be like the Holocaust. Yeah, I'm gonna say, yeah, probably they are. If they start saying shit like woke scold and trying to find ways that it's not racist, despite the fact that it very, very profoundly is, then I'm gonna say that they're probably not so X. It is. I mean, he's just muddying the waters on this issue, which is such a key issue, and I can't help thinking it seems deliberate. Because if you take his view that there's basically no standard for judging whether somebody might actually still be a Nazi despite claiming not to be, yeah, the way he just sort of makes this all very vague and shuts down any attempt to make it concrete. There have been a couple examples of that in this discussion already. That sounds like he's trying to avoid any kind of standard that somebody could actually look at him and determine whether he actually is as X as he says he is. He's not. Yeah, exactly. Proving you're a leftist is should be relatively easy, or proving that you're willing at the very least to listen and learn, that you have decided that the left seems to actually be on the right side of history, but recognizing that you still have you still have a lot to learn or unlearn because you've been steeping yourself in all this right-wing propaganda. I mean, it isn't actually that hard. If somebody says, "Hi, I'm an ex-Nazi," and then proceeds to dominate the discussion and lecture everybody and start using these buzzwords like woke scold, then I'm gonna say, yeah, that negative has not been proven. Yeah, his facial hair actually reminds me of the sort of rubber vomit that you used to be able to buy in the 80s. Maybe they've improved it since then.
You need evidence they are a Nazi, and if there's a lack of evidence to prove that, then they aren't a Nazi most likely.
No, see, that's fucked up. If you were a Nazi at some point, it is entirely reasonable to be expected to prove yourself, to prove that you have come good. I mean, I keep on coming back to, I forget who it was who said it, but it's the whole reason I even watched Xena the Warrior Princess. So, I mean, the whole first season of that show, see, they said they have to do Xena the Warrior Princess levels of proving themselves in order to feel entitled to anybody's trust on the left. And, the whole first series is she's proving she's not a horrible warlord sort of person anymore and is actually on the right side of things. And, yeah, it is actually not that hard to come up with ways that somebody could do that. It really isn't. And one way that Zanderhol patently fails at is that when you come from that background, you sit back, you listen, you pay attention, and you try to learn. You do not lecture people. You recognize that there's a whole lot of bullshit in your head, and you're going to have to spend a long time unlearning it.
If there's no evidence that they're a Nazi,
say it, yeah.
You can't prove a negative.
I know, but to just be a blind accepting to everybody is also what you shouldn't be doing. And I believe that there is a
blind.
Somewhere
Do you think
in
I blindly
between,
accept people?
Somewhere in between.
Well, see, I think that he expects people to uncritically accept him, and gets really offended when people point out things that, if he were truly X, if he were truly trying to be on the right side of things, he would say, "Oh shit, I didn't even realize that. I clearly have things to work on. I'm sorry about that." But he doesn't. He's like, "Oh, what's reactionary about calling people woke scolds just because they're to the left of Richard Spencer?" I mean, seriously. Yes, yes, Spencer's. I mean, well, there we go. His beard looks like something you could buy at Spencer's. There's a fairly well-known Nazi by the name of Spencer. His beard, his facial hair is a dog whistle.
Between what you think those people are doing and you, like the people, maybe like me, you think it's me that's trying to tell you, that they can't come back in, those people and you. There's something in between, and the way you're going about it and conflating kids that were barely in the rabbit hole to crazy Nazis, and we have to treat them the same, even if they've said sorry. It looks bad, it looks bad.
It's actually kind of interesting timing that I'm watching this one right now, because I'm watching an Australian show with my mother and her husband called A Place to Call Home. Set in the late 1950s in a country town just outside of Sydney. And the main plot arc at the moment, there's a character by the name of Regina, who starts out the thing as a fairly horrifying. This is a fairly aristocratic sort of family, the squatocracy it's known as in Australia, that basically just landed haute bourgeoisie who think themselves basically on the same level as aristocrats. But so she's a horrible scheming person whose entire thing is that she wants to marry George, the father of the family, who is a widower, in order to get her hands on his money and kill him, as she has done in the past through her preferred method of poisoning. And she also likes to be very anti-Semitic and is just generally a horrible person. She ends up killing a bunch of people. And then she ends up getting sectioned under the Mental Health Act and found not guilty of various things by reason of mental disease or defect, and ends up in a psych ward where she gets lucky and ends up having a halfway decent psychiatrist. And she comes out, and she actually does feel fucking horrible about the shit that she did. She really does want to be somebody else, to be a better person than she had been. And so the way she goes about proving this and expiating, to use the term that she likes to throw around, is by taking considerable risks in order to sabotage the efforts of this Rupert Murdoch type to screw over this family. He thinks that she's working for him. And that's the sort of thing I would expect as somebody who was an ex-Nazi. That they would take that sort of risk in order to show what side they are really on. I mean, that's a lot to ask, but the thing is, they fucked up fairly seriously by getting involved in Nazi shit to begin with. And we can talk about the difference between somebody who was raised in it. Like, that Kyle Rittenhouse was groomed into that shit. There is a limit to which he is personally culpable for that at 17 years old, when all he's known is fascist paramilitarism. But that's not a lot of Nazis. I mean, that's a subset of a small group already. And that's a separate thing. And what's interesting is those people don't tend to be the ones that start up YouTube channels and start berating the left. Yeah, I think that some grown-ass adults have very good reasons not to understand that the concept of sorry isn't good enough. In fact, he's not even saying sorry. He's just saying that somebody can front up, say, hey, yeah, used to beat the crap out of you guys, but yeah, now I'm an ex-Nazi now, so you got to accept me. I mean, and he thinks that's good. That he thinks that's okay. It's like, fuck off. Like, he does not begin to comprehend. I don't think he wants to, the degree of harm that one does by even being in that sort of. By even being part of that sort of movement. That's not just a neat little blip on your CV, that is an actual act of violence against people, and that those people have every right to distrust you at that point, unless you can get proved to their satisfaction that you're not that person anymore. And he just does not he doesn't want to understand that, because if he understood that, he wouldn't have a fucking social media, YouTube career, whatever the hell. I don't know what kind of money he makes from his stream, but I'm guessing it's probably more than me, which is at the moment bugger all.
People
no,
of color.
I think that I that's irrelevant. I think that
That's not irrelevant. That's exactly what you're saying and doing.
My goal is to reach everyone from like people who are a day away from shooting up a mosque, and to people who are like edgy anti-SJWs or centrists.
And what the hell is somebody who is a day away from shooting up a mosque going to take away from this, for example? Yeah, I mean, apart from the idea that he has a right to be offended if he walks up to a meeting of, like, communists or something and says, yeah, yesterday I was going to shoot up a mosque, but today I've decided, hello, fellow comrades. I mean, what the hell is somebody like that going to even take away from this, other than that the things that we absolutely do not need them taking away from it, that they are entitled to impose on our space without ever earning our trust? Yeah. Oh, well, acknowledging adulthood to Zanderhal makes you a boomer. Anyone who remembers Bill Clinton is a boomer. Anyone who remembers 9/11 is probably a boomer. In fact, anyone who actually saw the original Matrix in the cinema is probably a boomer. I mean, I love how he's trying to make this some sort of a generational thing, which is really kind of interesting, because what he's decided to say is that having some kind of... Yeah, I know. I mean, shit, I remember right-wing billboards celebrating Oliver North during Iran-Contra. But, well, he thinks that anyone who remembers 8-track tapes is definitely a boomer. I mean, he thinks that people from... My first, like, political event I ever went to was a Bill Clinton rally for his first term. And I will say, I fucked up, but I was 12 at the time. So please do not judge me too harshly.
So I want to reach all of those people and pull them from the left and make them not believe the shitty things they believe.
But you still believe a lot of the shitty things they believe.
Maybe that's like crazy.
Maybe
That's a crazy
while you're doing
goal.
that, you're like,
but
you're taking a people of color's seat, pulling it out, and giving it to the Nazi, and being like, you are more...
Damn right. That's exactly right. Because what we also... I mean, this is broken up, so you won't... people watching won't necessarily remember what was said at the very beginning of this. But one of the objections that this guy who's talking, and who shows up in the chat, he's actually watching this, it turns out, which is cool. He apparently unsubbed from Zanderhal after this, and subbed to me. So, that's kind of neat. But so he raised the point that the way Zanderhal had presented this, anyone who was harmed by Nazis, anyone who has anything to fear from Nazis because they belong, say, to a group that's targeted by Nazis, and who does not feel comfortable with some Nazi that they know and who's personally harmed them, showing up in a left space saying, yeah, hey, I'm an ex-Nazi now, ha ha ha. If they're uncomfortable, he said, they should go. And Zanderhal confirmed that is his view, that the person that at that point is the ex-Nazi who's entitled to stay, and anyone who's uncomfortable because they don't trust him, because he did all sorts of fucked up shit and he's done nothing to earn anyone's trust, should just leave at that point, which is a great way to turn left spaces into just safe spaces for Nazis.
More welcome here now.
What
you
seat?
Just said.
Whose seat am I taking away?
No, man. I mean, you see it. It is a problem. People of color that have been harassed their whole lives and stuff will never trust Nazis. Never.
What the hell is that? What is he? Is he brushing his gums with a gherkin? What the hell was that? Okay, we need to increase. I need to know what the hell that is. 360p. That's not going to cut it. We need to know what the hell that thing was. So that was just weird just now.
Man, I mean, you see it. It is a problem. People of color that have been harassed their whole lives and stuff will never trust Nazis. Never. Doesn't matter. I honestly, it's okay.
Well, they don't need to
yes,
trust
maybe
Nazis.
Us, maybe
I would just
right.
prefer if they didn't
do it.
go out of their way to harass ex-Nazis who've made an effort.
You know, who's talking about going out of their way? The fucking the hypothetical that we started with, that he has responded to as well. Oh, we know that he's got a dog or a cat because he's got a lint roller right there. Neat. Yeah, it was that an ex-Nazi fronts up to a leftist social space, and people who have been harmed by them are uncomfortable with that. So nobody's talking about going out of their way to harass ex-Nazis. And we're talking about ex-Nazis having some minimum consideration for the fact that people are going to be hostile and distrustful towards them, and they have earned that, and they need to earn the absence of it.
To change their opinions and be better people.
Oh, you're right, it is.
But they're still in the little community that this person was in. Now this person really doesn't feel welcome because they're like, wow, they care more to let this piece of shit that's been a piece of shit his whole life, but now he says he's okay, and now I gotta go because I have a problem with it, you know? And I'm not saying this is like, you know, all the time, but this is how you're coming off. And I think that people, like...
I mean, it's not just how he's coming off, he explicitly said this. This is something that Zenderhall, in like the first half hour of this thing at some point, explicitly said that they should just leave if they're not comfortable.
People of color see that and they're like, dude, I don't care what Nazis have done. Fuck all of them. You know?
And hey, chat, hypers if you're a person of color. I'm just curious because like nobody in the chat has been agreeing with you. I mean, granted, it is my community.
I could go find.
And that actually already says something about who's in his chat, because this is not what he's saying is not at all a controversial or, you know, idiosyncratic opinion in left spaces. I happen to know from being in lots of these discussions that a lot of people on the left, especially people of color and Jews and other people and, you know, queer people and people who have specific personal reasons to have something to fear from fascists, also are not cool with this approach of just bending over backwards to let these pricks in because they say they're okay now. So, I mean, the fact that so few people have expressed any disagreement with Xanderhall in this chat, and I've been watching it, because there's been some dodgy shit in there. I've tried to point it out as I see it. That already tells you something about who's even watching, because that's not normal on the left.
To go back to most of my friends, I could get them on, and they'd be like, dude, yeah, we've gotten beat up, spit on, all this shit.
I mean, look at his whole body language as well. I mean, this is fucked up, because he's talking about people who have been horribly traumatized by people like him, by people like Xanderhall. And if he truly understands how absolutely fucked up and violent being a fascist at all is, he should be showing some sign of concern about that. Instead, he looks bored. He looks like he's trying to avoid picking his nose because he just can't wait to end this conversation, but he's continuing for the fucking lulz. And he just looks absolutely bored. He doesn't show any concern. Like, I mean, just look at his eyes. Look at his brow is increased. There's just no sign that this is registering with him as something that he should care about. Yeah, exactly. I will also... I would have to actually I'm not going to say that I wouldn't. I'm not going to say never, because somebody could actually truly prove themselves. But that shit, as far as I'm concerned, would involve some amount of danger that they have voluntarily taken upon themselves in order to do harm to their former friends. If you want to show me that you're an ex-Nazi, you have to fuck up Nazis in a more committed way than those of us who've always hated Nazis want to fuck up Nazis. That's like that to me. That's just the bare minimum. If somebody isn't taking any risks, isn't burning any bridges, and they just come up and say, "I'm an ex-Nazi," fuck up. That's bullshit. I don't believe a word that they say. Yeah, I mean, he just strikes me as a prick, to be honest. He doesn't care about any of this. I mean, he just, for somebody who claims to have seen the light and everything like that, the whole idea of people being uncomfortable with fucking Nazis, with, well, ex-Nazis, I'm sorry, with people who used to go around murdering people like them, beating up people like them, trying to incite violence against people like them. I mean, he just clearly could not give less of a fuck.
You know, like, I raped, murdered. Well, you can't talk to the people who have been murdered because Nazis murder people. So is this a murdering Nazi who has, I'm better now? You know, like, it's just tough.
If they've changed their opinions, and they're not Nazis.
That Nazi murdered this person of color.
It's not just a matter of changing your fucking opinion. I mean, see, that's a big part of the problem. He just trivializes, and this is another, what I would say is a red flag if somebody claims to be an ex-Nazi and they trivialize Nazis like this, where it's just, they had an opinion and now they got a new one. First of all, if you can go from one deeply held opinion that actually does open you up to a fair bit of criticism, even from the mainstream of society, to the diametric opposite of that, and it barely registers as a thing, it's just, it changed my opinion, that tells me that none of it actually ever meant anything to you in the first place, because that should, if you come to the conclusion that a deep ideological commitment that you have actually, dedicated effort and, lost friends over and everything like that, that was wrong, that was fucked up, that you should never have done that, that's something that actually is psychologically scarring. It leaves a mark on you to realize that, just have that kind of a realization. It's not something that you can just sort of jump around. Yeah, I don't really give a fuck if Dylan Roof does change his mind. He's never going to be welcome. Although, honestly, I have to say, every one of these pricks the state gets, I think that it just shows a certain amount of failure. Because, really, the state isn't even particularly opposed to them. Yeah, anyone can claim to have renounced any fucking view. Caleb Maupin claims to be a communist, for fuck's sake, and if you listen to him for 5 minutes, you know what bullshit that is.
And then that person of color is supposed to be like, oh yeah, he says he's better now. I just need to be in the same community with him. I got to get out because Xander Hall.
He thinks this is funny. He thinks this is funny. What a prick.
Be like, hey, bro, you just got to get out of here for what you've done.
This is actually this is a really interesting hypothetical because of.
Yeah, it's a terribly interesting hypothetical. Look at his little smile. God, don't you just want to smack him? Just take that fucking vape pen that he keeps on fucking around with and use it to expand his nostrils.
How many layers it goes through. So for one,
sure.
How do I know this person murdered someone?
This is a lot.
Okay, so wait a second. How do I know this person murdered someone? It's one of the parameters of the hypothetical. The idea is that you're being asked to explain what you would do if that was known to be the case. That's the point of a hypothetical. When you question the factual premise of the hypothetical, and here, I mean, sometimes you get a ridiculous hypothetical. I mean, say when Vanderhol and Foch are talking about decolonization, then you get ridiculous hypotheticals from them, and then you do have to question it. But the hypothetical where a Nazi murdered somebody, that's not exactly out there. That's kind of a thing Nazis do. It's not even something they pretend they don't do, really. They're proud of it. Quietly, a lot of the time, amongst themselves. Often they will sort of totally disavow it in public, like when one of their number goes off and shoots up a school or some shit. But, yeah, I mean, this is to be acting like, how do you know that he murdered somebody? Well, it's a hypothetical. Assume it, for fuck's sake.
Dude, this isn't simple.
Do they have murderous tendencies? Like, are they like...
No, it's a fucking hypothetical, you prick. The hypothetical is this guy murdered people. It doesn't matter how you know it. It came to you in a dream. You made a bowl of alphabet soup, and when you poured it into the bowl, it spelled the bald-headed prick with the AR-15 murdered some people. It doesn't matter how you know it. It's a hypothetical, you...
On the edge of, like, attempting to kill someone constantly, but now they aren't Nazis? Like, are they a dangerous person because of, like, other reasons besides being a Nazi?
Maybe they're full.
They're a dangerous person because in this hypothetical, they've already murdered somebody. I wouldn't... If I had a cat, I would not subject the cat to his presence. But I feel like that roller in the background there tells us that some cat is imposed on by his presence.
If they're fully reformed, they have no chance
pillow.
of hurting anybody. They're leftists now. They are not Nazis anymore. Yes, they are fucking accepted.
Yeah. See, and also, you're not the one to be making this judgment. An ex-Nazi does not get to be talking about the criteria for accepting ex-Nazis, even if we assume, and I honestly think it is very much not in evidence, that he genuinely is ex. That's not for him to decide. It is, above all, for the people for whom Nazis pose the biggest threat to be deciding.
Well, what if they're not leftists? What if they're just wanting to be in your community? What if they're just said, I'm not... Because that's what most of these people that have done these tweets and stuff...
but they're progressive?
You're the only one that says that you've been a leftist. Most of those...
And that's bullshit. I mean, I haven't heard anything leftist from him yet. I mean, what is it? What tendency is he even? Like, what shit has he actually done leftist-wise?
Tweets and shit are just like, I'm not a Nazi anymore. What does that mean? You know, like, you could be like a...
particular person is a leftist.
Not leftist.
That particular person is a leftist. The person that you brought up?
Wait, okay, so he needs evidence that the guy in the hypothetical that is all about somebody who murdered somebody, but he'll just take it on faith that the guy's a leftist?
That was in the screenshot, the person who got harassed by all those people?
Well, they should have said that then. In that thing, that would have been a little bit better. But
do you think it was
I don't think that would have been a little bit better. It would give it... I would still want to see some goddamn proof. I do not think that there's anything particularly better. And by the way, welcome, Phoenix Rising. I think I've seen you in my comments, but I think this might be the first time you've been in chat, and it's good to have you. Always nice to see new people because... For the most part, this for the duration of this stream, it has mostly been populated by people who I personally tagged in the post on Facebook where I said I'm going live, and so it's cool to see it sort of going beyond that. Do we know each other under different names?
For that person to expect
I'm not a Nazi anymore.
Do you think it was reasonable?
Most of the people.
Do you think it was reasonable for that person to expect that in that little fucking response to somebody that they were going to get screenshotted and that post was going to go viral?
Yes, I think it's totally reasonable to expect. What the fuck did they think they were going to do? This is what happens on Twitter. It's how Twitter works. and an ex-Nazi knows all about screenshotting people's shit out of context, they should certainly expect it. Oh, okay. Well, there is some pushback now in the chat. An N.01 says he's not talking about a 15-year-old who made some racist jokes and said Nazi shit in their house with their racist dad or whatever. Damn right. He's talking about a Nazi who killed somebody and now says he's come good. Except the fucking hypothetical, Xander Hole.
That they should have, like, typed out their entire fucking history.
Okay. This is another thing from the beginning that we all probably forgot about because we saw the beginning of this like a month ago at this point, I think. But there was somebody posted a thing, and it's what originated this discussion on Twitter, saying, "I used to be a Nazi and now I'm not. Hee hee hee," or something like that, and this has resulted in this whole discussion because it started out with a debate over whether they were actually serious about any of it.
History that, like, yeah, I was a Nazi, but then I blah blah blah, and now I'm a leftist and I'm much better now. Or do you think it was just like literally the post was just
you said they should do. That's what you said they should do. That's what you.
Hang on just a second. I forgot to bring my bottle of water, and my throat is getting parched. This is such a makeshift studio I've got here. A scuffed sofa and a little TV dinner table. Okay.
Who said that? Right
I said
after
it
that,
would
they're like,
I said
I
it would have been
reworded it
ideal.
different.
I said it would have been ideal if they did that, not that it was reasonable for them to
That's
expect they should
hindsight.
have.
That's bullshit hindsight. They said
Wait,
that. A lot of
do you
people
think
freak out.
Wait, do you think it is bad to say, hey, in hindsight, they could have done this and it would have gone better for them?
No, it's not bad, but you...
Okay, at this point, I don't even know what he's talking. Could have done what, and it would have gone better for them.
But you're just being like, well,
Oh, okay. Oh, now he's getting some pushback. Russian spy says, "My God, this is debate that makes me dislike Xander holds so much combination of incredible patience and inability to point and attack an opposing position, and it is incredibly weak, stretches this shit for hours." Okay, now I'm actually... Whose inability to pinpoint and attack opposing... Yeah, okay, not necessarily what I think that might have been something that I wasn't what I thought I was reading there.
they should have, and it's like, they
Oh, and somebody in the chat says, "I am so close to pulling the minority card," which doesn't sound dodgy at all.
didn't, and it looked bad, so it looked bad. I wouldn't have freaked out on it. I wouldn't have done that, but I would have been like, man, that person was terrible wording, and that's what I thought. It was just terrible. I mean, you just look like a little sarcastic idiot that didn't say anything, but I was Nazi more, but now I'm okay. And like most people,
it was a response to a tweet that had like 100 likes that said, "All teenagers are dumb. Don't fucking beat yourself up about it." And she responded, I was a Nazi, but I'm much better now." Like,
and with a smiley face and shit, it just looks like, it kind of looks to other people like you're being sarcastic, and that's what the problem was.
wait,
honestly.
do you think saying I used to be a Nazi and now I'm better now, and then smiling because it's a good thing that you're not a Nazi
with a
anymore,
short little thing like that?
Yeah, that does sound dodgy as hell. Because again, we're talking about having realized something that you have done something profoundly fucked up that hurt people. Yeah, that isn't something that you just say, I'm better now. I mean, I wouldn't even accept that from an ex-Nazi who really had proved themselves to my satisfaction. I would not accept it from them because they don't get to find that shit funny.
like that to a lot of people, it probably just seemed like sarcastic and they weren't too like genuine about it. And
I
that's
don't
why I
know.
think a lot of
The,
people got
the
upset.
the biggest responses to that, the ones that had tens of thousands of likes, all said white leftists are too willing to accept people who used to be Nazis. Or
Damn right. There's a reason that had tens of thousands of likes, because it's actually true. I mean, that is who I always see. It's not people who actually, if they weren't in leftist spaces, would have anything to fear from Nazis who are really into welcoming them back. It's the people who actually probably, if the Nazis didn't know they were leftists, would probably be cool with them, that are the ones who think that this is such a wonderful thing and we should be welcoming them all back. And meanwhile, I mean, why? I mean, okay, I think people can change. I think that an ex-Nazi who proves themselves, I'm open to the possibility of somebody doing that. I've been, I think, pretty detailed about the standard that I would apply, and it really kind of depends on how deep they were into it as well. The deeper they were into it, the more I would demand of them. But the thing is, fundamentally, it's the people who have something to fear from that person who get to have the last word on that discussion. And it's certainly not pricks like Xanderhole who get to make those sorts of decisions. And it makes no sense to be dedicating too much effort to recruiting ex-Nazis, because there are not actually that many active fascists to begin with. There are way more people who never even considered becoming fascists. And I mean, who do you want to squick off, really? Who do you want to skeeve? Do you want to skeeve out the people who would be uncomfortable with somebody who used to be a Nazi? Or do you want to skeeve out people who used to be Nazis? If the one is a huge group, I mean, he acts like everybody used to be a Nazi. Like it's like smoking weed in high school or something like that. I mean, but the reality is, it is a tiny group of people who really get active in that. It's nowhere near as large as the group of sort of apolitical working class people who, were born into liberalism, so they tend to have a lot of liberal ideas, but they'd be open to hearing something else. That's a much bigger group of people. And you're gonna risk your relationships with them in order to break out fucking finger foods for ex-Nazis? Like, what sense does that make?
Saying once a Nazi, always a Nazi. So is your issue with that person's sarcasm?
I don't agree with people saying that online. I don't, but I also sympathize with a lot of people that do say that, because they have been tortured. A lot of the people that say
the vast majority.
die.
I hate that I have to say this, okay, but this should be fucking obvious. The vast majority of even people of color on Twitter have not been tortured by Nazis, okay?
Okay, that's not really the fucking point, though, you see. Because pretty much everybody who is a visible target of fascists in a time of resurgent street fascism does have to worry that they might run into one of those pricks at a time when they're caught off guard. It doesn't matter that not all of them were personally tortured. Guess what? They have something to fear, and they have good reason to fear it. Especially, if you're living in a fascist hotspot, say you're living in Portland, for example. I mean, he was acting like Oregon, it was like some sort of fash-free zone, but actually the Pacific Northwest is one of their real strongholds. I mean, which is not saying a whole lot. We're talking about they can get a couple of hundred people together if they have a few weeks' notice to do it. But I mean, that's where a lot of fash groups are active. And if you are living in any place where there's any sign of fascist activity and you're somebody that they would have reason to want to attack, especially if it's a visible reason that you can't just hide in some way. Yeah, that is something that personally affects you. It's not. It's God. This is such bullshit.
It's just not the case. They maybe been
Black
like
person I talk
harassed
to
on Twitter.
online is like, try being black online. Try it. You know, like a lot of my black friends are like, dude,
a
doesn't
lot of
matter
black
whatever
people
you
on the
do.
a lot of black people on the internet get called the N-word and stuff like that. That is not torture.
Okay.
The comparison that you're drawing, or the emotion you're trying to evoke, is as
Dude.
though they've been beaten or assaulted by like Proud Boys or Nazis.
God, I mean, he just can't help but just trivialize this shit. Which, again, is something that you should watch out for. If somebody claims to be an ex-Nazi and they want to talk about how actually Nazis aren't that bad, aren't that much of a threat, nobody has anything to fear from them. Yeah, I mean, that's somebody who clearly is not X enough. I wouldn't let him. I could be, if I were in a group and we were having some kind of an open house, it would not be open to his ass. Is chat backing up at all? Are we having chat latency? I just want to be sure. Because that's happened a couple of times because I use Restream and there's a problem with sometimes with Twitch.
Protests.
Who are you to say that they shouldn't be like really, really, really hurt by people calling them the N-word? You can't say like, oh, just let it roll off your back.
Yeah, who is he to say that? Seriously. I mean, that would not be for, like, any white guy, no matter how sound he was politically otherwise. But a fucking ex-Nazi, professed ex-Nazi, does not get to be the one to opine on how people should react when they are confronted with racial slurs.
That's what you're saying. You're like,
I didn't say someone shouldn't be hurt by it.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Did I ever say that, or did I say it wasn't tantamount to torture?
Yeah, you're like, it's not. Yeah, it's not torture. It's not torture.
Even tantamount to torture. It's not even comparable.
Yeah, we see what he's done here. Is okay. The hypothetical is very clear. There's a Nazi. There's a guy who, as a Nazi, killed some people. Wants to get into leftist spaces. Claims not to be a Nazi anymore. And so instead of ever answering this issue, Zanderhole first goes into, well, how have you proven that he killed people? It's a fucking hypothetical. The person doesn't exist. But, so, and then they end up in this whole thing, and then the torture comes up, and then it's all about, oh, actually, well, the Nazis don't really hurt anyone. It's like, Jesus, fuck this guy.
Torture.
It's torture when it happens a lot, and it happens a lot. That's what I mean. Yeah, that one little incident.
Yeah, and psychological torture is a thing that exists. I mean, and putting somebody in a position where they are living under a constant existential threat of some kind is traumatic enough. You certainly could call that torture. I mean, in fact, a lot of the most effective forms of torture are just ways of doing that, of just creating an environment of constant threat without necessarily ever leaving a mark on somebody. So yeah, that certainly can amount to torture.
Right there, but it happens a lot. That's tantamount to torture.
So do you think, like, when I get called the F slur on Twitter, that's torture?
Terrorize. How about terrorize?
What's the F slur for Zanderhole? What, fash? I mean, I wouldn't have called that a slur, first of all.
Maybe that's a better word. Terrorize.
Sure, that would be a lot closer than torture. So do you think I'm being terrorized when someone, like, comments on, like, one of my Twitter posts calling me, like, the F slur or something?
Oh,
or the R slur, even better. Or the R slur, even...
Oh, you see, he's bringing up the R slur. I know this from watching his chat. Because he used to make a whole lot of use of the R slur until even his chat decided it was too much and told him to cut it out, and he actually did eventually.
Better. I have ADHD.
Okay,
so the
if somebody was gay, if somebody was gay and people were saying that, if somebody was gay and people were saying that to him,
no,
I would say, yeah, we're not going to say
no, between you and me. I'm curious.
Nobody gives a fuck about your perspective on this.
I have ADHD. I've been diagnosed with ADHD. Okay.
I don't care.
Okay? If someone comments on one of my Twitter posts, Yeah, a lot of people have ADHD. If someone responds to one of,
everybody
comments on one of my
does.
Twitter posts, calling me the R slur, am I being
the R slur.
terrorized? Because the R slur is ableist.
Jesus Christ. This is obviously a totally different scenario than Nazis harassing you with slurs, Xanderhole.
Because because of the R slur is bad. I'm not saying it's not good or anything, but it's way different than the N-word.
No, see, I don't think it is way different, but the context is everything on this. And honestly, I don't think he actually allows anything to touch him. I don't think he actually gives a fuck about anything. He's on his grift and he doesn't really care. So no, I don't think he personally would feel terrorized. And also, I don't think that he actually is experiencing slurs for having ADHD. I just don't believe him because I think he's full of shit. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. He just strikes me as completely full of shit on everything else, so why should he be telling the truth about this bit? But it is a matter of context. Some random assholes saying insulting things to you when you have a huge platform and are an even bigger asshole, I don't think that counts as terrorizing anyone. But, I mean, if you've got, like, Nazis in your town and every time they see you, there's, like, saying racial slurs and shit, and suggesting that they might take a further interest in you, yeah, that is fucking terrorizing somebody. God, this is just, he just deflects every attempt to bring this back to a place of reality where we acknowledge that Nazis do actual harm.
It is. I don't think people should be saying it.
Look at it, he doesn't give a shit about any of this.
But it's way.
So now we're doing like the unironic like oppression Olympics thing. I hold basic. I hold all slurs at this point.
Well, I mean, I guess anything to avoid discussing the topic that this guy brought up, Vaz.
At this point, with my ideology, I hold all slurs to the same level.
F slur or the F slur to gay. The F slur to gay. That's way worse than R slur.
I see. No, I don't actually buy that. I don't think so. I think that this has gotten off into a actually fairly problematic direction because the issue is not whether slurs, different forms of bigotry and oppression, one is, better or worse than the other, or, the issue is all about the context and the person. It's going to, what terrorizes one person isn't necessarily going to terrorize another person. People have different thresholds, and those thresholds are very much the responsibility of the people who are harassing them. If you harass somebody and it turns out that they've got a thick skin, they can take it, and then you're just lucky in that sense. If you do the same thing to somebody and it turns out they're actually quite sensitive for one reason or another, then yeah, you did a whole lot of harm as a result, and that's entirely up to you, because if you hadn't been fucking around and harassing people, that wouldn't have happened. I mean, the way this has just been so completely derailed at this point by Xanderhole is, I mean, it is just absolutely just a master class in how to avoid talking about the harm fascists do.
Because it's just the connotations and everybody that's saying it. The history of those. It's like, it's way more impactful to people. So,
and it's 2-1 at this point, so it is time to wrap up. We have 50 minutes to go in this, so maybe we'll get through it next weekend. In the meantime, have a good night. Hope you're enjoying your dinner, and thank you for coming, Phoenix Rising. I'm was glad to see some new people. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I hope you see you on Friday at 11:30 Eastern Time. Till 1 a.m. or Saturday as well, same times, for the next stream. Good night. Always nice to see you. And remember, multiple flirtations at once in a WLW context makes perfect sense because it's the only way to ensure a reasonable probability that at least one of the women involved realizes a flirtation is occurring. Good night.